In this video, I will acquaint you with the Talkpod A36 GMRS and ham radio. I had not been planning to make a video about this radio, even though a lot of people were asking and begging me to, but the Talkpod Corporation contacted me and said they would send me a pair of these radios if I would share them with you, my favorite viewer. A decision that I am sure the Talkpod Corporation will probably come to regret by the end of this video. The price for the Talkpod A36 Plus ranges from $49 to $59, depending on which flavor or color you choose. And you can check the affiliate link below for today's price. And when I say the affiliate link below, I am referring to the more information section of the video below or to the right of the screen that you are watching me on right now. And in that more information section, you will find a link that when you click on it with your mouse or tap on it with your finger, depending on what kind of machine you are watching me with right now, it will take you to the Amazon page for the new Talkpod A36 GMRS and ham radio so that you can read more information about it or purchase one for your very self. As you can see, the description on the box of the new Talkpod A36 Plus says this is a GMRS radio. And here on the box, it says that it is a ham radio, which is much confusing. So together we will find out if this is just ham, just GMRS, or if this is truly the holy grail of radios, both GMRS and the ham. So when you purchase the new Talkpod A36 Plus radio in the box, you will receive a USB programming cable. This is a standard K1 type radio, the same thing that you would use on your Boofwang type radio. You would use this to connect to your computer, and then you can use the free Chirp software to program it. And I would like to point out that most radios you have to pay extra for just such a cable. You will receive a belt clip, and the belt clip attaches to the battery of the radio, not the radio itself, but it does have a quick release on it that will allow you to quickly and easily remove it from the battery so that when you change batteries, you can also change belt clips. This is important for affixing the radio to your belt so that you can impress the chicks. You will receive this lovely wrist strap. Some of the experts may refer to this as a lanyard, but we all know this is a wrist strap designed to be affixed by one end to the radio and the other end to any appendage upon your body of which you choose. You will receive a charging cradle for plugging the radio into for charging of the batteries. The other end then goes into one of those holes that you find along your walls in your home so that the electrical energies can go from the wall through this wire into the charger and thusly filling up your radio with electricities. You will receive an antenna. You will receive a USB-C to USB-A charging cable because this radio does indeed support USB-C charging. You will also receive this USB charger. Just like the charging cradle, you stick one end into the holes that you find along the walls in your home. You stick one end of the cable into the charger, The other end goes to the USB-C hole on the battery of the radio. You will receive a battery, 1500 milliamp hours, and as just mentioned, it does have a USB-C fast charging hole. And you will receive a user manual. I have seen some complaints about this manual online, which I assumed were just from beginners or beginners complaining because they have not experienced as many manuals as I have. Because on these inexpensive type radios, the manuals are almost always pretty bad. But then I experienced this manual, and I can confirm that in my very humble or not so humble opinion, this is the worst manual of any radio that I have ever experienced. It is written in poor Chinglish, and it basically only tells you how to put the pieces of the radio together and turn the radio on. For GMRS use, this is probably okay because with any GMRS radio, as I'm sure you probably already know, and if you don't already know, I'm about to tell you, for a GMRS radio, you just turn it on and use it. However, this manual does not even tell you that much. It does have a listing of all of the menu options, but nowhere does it tell you how to get to those menu options. And not only do the menu listings in the manual not really tell you what the options are or what they do, but they are all numbered incorrectly. And you will receive the Talkpod A36 Plus GMRS and ham radio. Radio has all of the basic operations, on and off. It has an alarm button on the top, a hole for which to affix the antenna. On the side, a push-to-talk button, 2 programmable side buttons. Under the cover, you will find where to plug in the programming cable. The radio has no real IP rating. I believe it is rated as IP54, which means it is not waterproof and barely dustproof. On the front, you will find some standard buttons, but nowhere does our useless manual tell us what those buttons are or what they do. But thanks to my vast superior intellect, I was able to figure out that the green button will get you into the menus if you press it once. The up and down buttons are for changing channels and maneuvering through the menu items. The red button is the back or cancel button. The AB switches you between the upper screen and the lower screen, thusly. And if you press and hold the green button, that will switch you between VFO and channel mode. And interestingly, VFO and channel mode are separate on the upper and lower or A and B screens. For example, the A screen can be in channel mode, while the lower or B screen is in VFO mode, something that most radios cannot do. One thing I forgot to mention about the mostly useless user manual is that it does warn you to not swing the radio around by its antenna. Not that anyone would ever do that. The radio has a fairly nice color screen. However, like most color LCD screens on most radios in this price range, it is not great in direct or bright sunlight. The PTT, but I almost forgot. Okay, where was I? The PTT button is very clicky and tactile. I've seen some people online whining that the button is too sensitive or too easy to click. However, it is not much different from most radios in this price range. And overall, the radio does everything that you would expect any decent GMRS radio to do. It has split tones. It has dual channel watch so that you can listen to 2 channels at the same time, as you can see here. And this radio can not only transmit on GMRS, but it can indeed also receive commercial FM radio, NOAA, and airband. But more important, right out of the box, this radio can transmit on both GMRS and the ham. Now, I have seen a lot online from ham radio operators whining about spurious RF emissions on this radio, but I am sure, as you probably already know, and if you do not know, I am about to tell you, normal people do not care about spurious RF emissions. If spurious RF emissions are something that keeps you awake at night, then you have bigger issues to worry about than this radio. But I did not see any airplanes falling from the sky during any of my testing with this radio, so these spurious RF emissions cannot be that bad. And if they are, I don't care because I am a normal person. I did want to see how this radio was programmed right out of the box, so using Chirp, I was able to quickly and easily load in the programming for viewing on my computer screen. And as you probably know, and if you do not know, I'm about to tell you, a radio certified by the FCCs for GMRS use must have channels 1 through 22 preset and hard-coded with the GMRS channels. However, as you can see from this screenshot of Chirp, after I downloaded the programming, it appears that out of the box, channels 1 through 22 are labeled as FRS channels, and they are all set at high power, which is 5 watts. So technically, these are GMRS channels, because GMRS and FRS channels are the same frequencies. But as I just mentioned, they are all set to high power, which is wrong. Some of the channels should be set to low power per the FCC guidelines. And as you can see, all channels are also preset with a CTCSS tone of 88.5, which means unless whoever you are talking to has configured their radio specifically to send that tone, you will never hear them when they try to talk to you. They will hear you, but you will never hear them. Channels 23 through 52 are labeled as GMRS channels, which, as we all know, and if you do not know, I'm about to tell you, those channels should all be set at wideband. But out of the box, all channels labeled GMRS are set to narrowband. They are also all set to high power, but some of them should be preset to lower power according to our FCCs. And all of the GMRS labeled channels are preset with a DTC tone of 0 to 3, which means that unless someone is talking to you with a radio that is configured to send that tone of 0 to 3, you will never hear them. And perhaps most disturbing of all, the offset for repeater channels is set to 3 MHz. And as I'm sure you already know, and if you do not know, I'm about to tell you, all GMRS repeaters per the FCC rules use a 5 MHz offset, not 3 MHz. In other words, out of the box, if you try to connect to a repeater, not only will you be transmitting on an unauthorized frequency, which would make the FCCs very sad, but more importantly, you will never be able to use that repeater. Fortunately, all of these things, the tones, the codes, the narrowband, the incorrect repeater offsets, all of these things can be very easily fixed using Chirp or fixed slightly less easily directly on the radio itself if you do not have a computer. And once you take the time and effort to make all of those changes, then this radio works exactly as it should. And yes, most importantly, this radio does have a Roger beep. According to the manual, it is menu item 13, but it is actually item number 0. However, the Roger beep only plays through your transmission. It does not have a side tone, and as I'm sure you probably already know, and if you do not know, I'm about to tell you, because there is no side tone, this means that whoever is listening to your transmission can bask in the glory of your Roger beep, but you will not hear it. A few other interesting things that I noticed while reading the website description of this radio, and it is important to note that this is not in the Amazon listing that I link to with my affiliate links below. But on the Talkpod website, I came across a few other interesting features, specifically private call scrambling. I could not find anything about that in the user manual. However, there is a voice privacy menu option, but it does not seem to do anything when enabled. The website lists an option for Shake Dizzy, Shake Fraud, Shake Up. I have no clue what that is supposed to be, but it sounds awesome. The Amazon listing and the website both indicate that this radio has a maximum of 512 programmable channels. That, to put it kindly, is a lie. This radio has 256 programmable channels, and no matter what kind of grammatical gymnastics they try to use, they are lying. This radio has 256 channels, not 512 channels. The website says MDC 1200 and other call end tones. And this gave me much interest and excitement because MDC, as you probably know, and if you do not know, I'm about to tell you, MDC is that data chirp sound that many high-end radios make, which is actually the sound of a digital ID being sent. There is an MDC 1200 setting in the Roger Beep configuration menu, and enabling this option does send an MDC sounding tone instead of the Roger Beep, which is cool. So being able to read MDC 1200 IDs would be great. However, this radio did not read any of my MDC tones from any of my Motorola radios, and of course, there is nothing about it in the user manual. But it does have that cool MDC sound that you can enable as a Roger Beep. Talkpod says this radio outputs 5 watts, and as you can see, this radio is outputting almost exactly that, and actually more than 5 watts on the ham 2-meter band, which was quite the surprise. And the big question that everyone wants to know, and what matters the most, is how many FARs does it talks? And as I'm sure you probably already know, but if you don't know, I'm about to tell you, FARs is the scientific measure of how many FARs it can talks. The more FARs a radio has, the farsier it can talks. So to help me test how many FARs this radio has, I asked my friend Chris, who lives 10.1 miles away, to get on his lime green Talkpod A36 Plus to see if we could talk to each other from that distance.
Hey Randy, it's Chris. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. How do I sound?
And as you just saw with your own ears, Chris and I were able to talk fairly clearly from 10.1 miles away, direct simplex radio to radio, no repeater used. And I was able to connect to and use my 2 favorite repeaters, one atop Santiago Peak, 30 miles from me, and one atop Palomar Mountain, 69 miles away. However, it is very important to point out that my abode is high in the hills, overlooking the crumbling cities below, giving me almost perfect clear line of sight to Chris and those repeaters. What I am saying is, in other words, your FARs will vary. Because the box says this is a GMRS and the ham type radio, I was curious to learn what frequency this antenna was best tuned for. Now, as you probably know, and if you do not know, I'm about to tell you, it is very difficult to get a good SWR reading from a handheld radio antenna. However, using my antenna analyzer, we can get a good idea of whether or not the antenna is tuned at all for GMRS. And as you can see, the antenna is fairly well tuned for GMRS. Not perfect, but good enough for any regular person using this radio for the GMRS transmissions. So should you buy the new Talkpod A36 radio, A36 Plus radio? Everything that I have complained about can be easily fixed using your computer and the free Chirp software or slightly less easily fixed directly on the radio itself. And once you make those changes, this radio does everything that it should and can do, just as expected. This radio has just as many FARs as any other radio, and it comes with the programming cable and the USB-C charging cable, something that you usually have to pay more for with most other radios. And the radio can do GMRS and the ham. So if you are a radio dork looking for a new top-of-the-line, best of the best GMRS or ham radio, then no, don't be stupid. This is a $40 radio. If you are new to the exciting world of GMRS or ham, then this probably is not a good choice either, because it's probably going to be too confusing due to the issues right out of the box. If, however, you are a normal person that has been around the GMRS block a few times, and you are looking for an inexpensive GMRS radio that can do ham and GMRS with a decent color screen and USB-C charging, then sure, this is not a bad choice.